Hey everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we will be starting a new series called Cherish, my horror academia series. The creator of this what if is Toxic Blood 18. If you like the video make sure to like, subscribe and share the video with your friends. The link to this what if will be description. Now on to the what if. Chapter 1, the creation of Jigsaw 14 years ago, when I was just little kid I realized this world was filled with people who were ungrateful of their lives despite having gifts that others would kill and die for. On that day I vowed that I would teach them to cherish the value of their lives and those around them. This is the story of how I created a worthy generation. 28 years ago a man named Toshio with the ability to see really far and a woman named Rieko, who had the ability to see in the dark, fell deeply in love and decided to spend the rest of their lives together. They got married soon after and had 2 twins, a boy and a girl, and they lived happily for many years until Rieko was diagnosed with breast cancer, and though she fought hard with all her might but it wasn't enough and she lost the fight. Out of depression Toshio became an alcoholic and very aggressive towards his children because they reminded him of the woman he loved and lost. On the twins' 10th birthday Toshio came home drunk and beat his kids, but this time the boy struck the father, but it just angered him more, causing him to beat his son to death. The girl tried to stop him but her father was too strong and he backhanded her, knocking her out. When she had finally awoken it was the next day and her brother and father were nowhere to be found, so she sat on the couch waiting for them while playing with Legos. She loved to build and create things, and from time to time she would sneak into the shed and build stuff with spare wood and nails that she could take without her dad noticing. It wasn't until late that night her father came home and sat next to her on her bed and explained to her that he had sent her brother away to a boarding school, but she knew that he brother wasn't at a fancy school but dead and her father had buried him somewhere in the forest. Her father suddenly pulled her into a big hug. He reeked of liquor and cigarette smoke as he began to cry and try to apologize to her, but she didn't know what he was apologizing for. He hadn't done anything to her yet. That's when she noticed where his hands were moving to. She tried to fight him off but he was too strong and he backhand slapped her, then ripped off her pajama shirt and used the shreds to tie her down so she wouldn't escape or put up a fight. He then proceeded to remove her pajama bottoms and began raping her. After 5 minutes he had his way with her and he freed her from her bonds. She didn't run but instead huddled up into a ball in the corner of her bed and cried herself to sleep that night and prayed and that this was all just a bad dream. The next day at school a teacher noticed the marks on her arms and legs and called the police, leading to Toshio being arrested and the girl put into the Musutafu orphanage. Even though her father was gone and couldn't hurt her anymore, she was now tormented by the other kids. She was outcast by everyone. Even some of the staff stopped caring about her, but one man gave her hope, the hero known as Endeavor. She admired him and wanted to be a hero just like him, but she had her father's quirk which gave her the ability to zoom in. It was useless in becoming a hero, but she had another talent which was making tons of gadgets that would help her reach her goal, and one day she got the chance to meet him. Listen kid and listen well, you can't become a hero. Those words crushed whatever hope and spirit the now 13-year-old girl had left in her to fall into a deep depression. She decided she didn't want to live anymore and planned her suicide. Late that night she broke out of the orphanage and took her bike that she had made from spare parts to a cliff at Digaba Beach. She took one last breath before jumping off the cliff, landing in a pile of metal scrap. However, the fall didn't kill her, which she was actually happy about. As soon as she jumped she regretted it instantly, and now her arm was broken and she had been impaled on a metal spike. Using her one good arm she managed to rip out the metal spike which bled even more, but she was able to move now, so she was able to get to her feet and limp to a hospital. As the doctors operated on her she found herself a new purpose in life and a new inspiration to becoming a hero. She thought about how despite her peers in the orphanage having great quirks such as the ability to regenerate, shoot needles from their back, shape-shift their hands into weapons and many more awesome quirks, they only cared to make her life a living hell, and this made her think about the future of this world. They were unworthy of their abilities they were given, but she thought about how her close-up with death changed her, making her grateful of her ability in her life. She decided that she would go to UA and enter through the support class so she could meet the heroes and make their equipment, but also see if they were worthy of being heroes. Eventually the headmaster of the orphanage came to scold her and tell her what she did was wrong, but she didn't care. All she could think about is how was she going to teach them to appreciate life and its gifts. After a month had passed she was released from the hospital, but there was no time for rest, for she had to start studying if she was gonna make it into UA. But she also wanted to work on her devices. One day while working in her room she looked out the window and saw a girl named Akito who has a quirk that gives her bare claws instead of hands, and she was beating up another kid. She decided that Akito would be first to play her games, as she would call them, and this would be the beginning of her legacy, the legacy of Mei Hatsum. Chapter 2, The First Game. Please don't hurt me, Akito. A small boy begged the older girl not to hurt him. Give me all of your money and I won't cut you with my quirk, she said as she waved them around the boy's face, showing off how sharp they look. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a few wrinkle bills and gave it to her. That's it. She raised an eyebrow as the boy began to shake. That's all I have, please. I'm not lying. She punched him in the stomach and threw the boy to the ground as she proceeded to search the boy's pockets. Guess you were telling the truth. She then simply walked away down an alley, leaving the boy on the ground crying and holding his stomach in pain, but then he was suddenly felt a tap on his shoulder. He turned to find a person wearing a red and black robe with a pig mask on her face with long black hair. Who are you? The figure said nothing but simply handed the boy some candy and patted him on the head. He smiled and ran back into the orphanage, but the figure walked down the alley after Akito, waiting for the right time to strike but also not trying to get caught. The masked figure pulled out a syringe filled with propofol and ran up behind Akito and stabbed her in the neck. What the hell? She tried to hit the figure but the drugs kicked in and she fell to her knees. I will be break you. Akito passed out from the drug and the masked figure picked her up and carried her into a nearby abandoned building. The figure carried her into a windowless room with a big iron door that was custom made and a chair in the center of the room where the figure laid her on. Damn, can't breathe in this mask. The mask came off, revealing Mei's face. She reached into her bag and pulled out glass jars filled with nails and other explosives and wires and a timer on top and placed them around the room. She then checked the door baby she had especially made for Akito to teach her a lesson to SES if it was ready. All good here, she said as she exited the room, but right as she was about to close the door she stopped herself and ran back in the room. How could I forget the most important part of the game, the instructions? She then pulled out a cassette player with the tape already inside with the words "Play Me" on it. She placed it right in front of Akito before running out the room and finally shutting the door and locking her in. Mei ran over to a nearby room where she could watch the game unfold through TVs connected to the surveillance cameras in the room. Alright, now it's time to wait. She opened up some snacks and stared at the screen, waiting for her first victim to wake up. She waited for almost an hour and a half before Akito woke from the drugs. Where the hell am I? The lights came on, allowing her to see, letting her be able to see the room, the tape recorder at her feet. She slowly got up, still dizzy from the drug, and reached down to pick up the cassette player. Play me. She read and did what was wrote on the label, pressing the play button. Hello, Akito. A voice said in a dark-sounding voice. You're a very strong girl born with a quirk that could be used to defend others who can't defend themselves, but instead, you use it to bully and steal from the weak despite them giving you everything they had to offer. For these actions you must pay either with your quirk or your life. Once this recorder stops it will start the 10-minute timer on the bombs surrounding you. The only way to survive the blast is by leaving room by opening the door, but the only way to do that is to stick your fingers in the hole and let the door declaw you, like a cat. So what will it be, your quirk or your life? Let the games begin. Mei hit a button on a remote activating the bombs and starting the timer. Akito walked over to the door as fast as she could and began banging on it, crying for help, but no one could hear her cries. When the clock was at 7:30 remaining, Akito looked at the hole, then noticed the writing on the wall that said, "Stick your fingers in all the way and wait 5 seconds." Akito raised her hands up to the holes but was too scared to put them, frequently backing off and trying to pull herself together and do this. She looked at the bomb timers that were now at 5:30 left. She decided to go one finger at a time, putting in her pinky finger first as she counted to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. She pulled out what was left of her finger. It was cut from the second knuckle. She cried but continued to put in finger after finger and watched as they were cut off by the door, and each time it did you could hear a tumbler unlock. Please God, no more. I promise to be a better person, just let me out, okay please. I don't want to play anymore, for God's sake. She began to cry as she realized the timer was at 1 o'clock left. She slowly pulled herself back to the door and began putting her remaining fingers in the holes, watching as they got cut off by the horrible machine. Once the last finger was cut, the door made a loud noise and opened. She smiled, but then she looked over at the bomb that had 1 second left on it. Boo! Mei got up from her seat and turned off the TVs. she walked over to the room Akito was in to find the door open but chunks of shredded flesh and ripped apart organs but an arm seemed to be the only thing left somewhat intact. She pulled out a knife and cut off a piece of skin, shaping it like a jigsaw puzzle piece to represent she was missing something, a vital piece of the human puzzle, the survival instinct. Once she was done, she packed up her stuff and left to the building, heading back to the orphanage, going straight to her room and passing out in her bed. The next day she awoke and went straight to work on her babies and studying for UA when she was interrupted by a knock on her door. She put her baby down and got up and opened the door to find the headmaster of the orphanage staring smiling at her. "Hello Hatsum, how are you?" "I'm good, just working on some of my babies. Do you need something?" The headmaster smiled. "I was just wondering, have you seen Akito around? She didn't come back after she said she was going to the animal shelter to help out." May was disgusted with Akito's lie, but she didn't let it show. "Nope, haven't seen her, sorry." The headmaster looked sad now. "Okay, well if you do see her, tell her to come see me, she's in a lot of trouble." "Will do, headmaster." She saluted her like she was a general and shut the door. She took a deep breath and sat back at her workbench. This world is filled with ungrateful people and she must teach them the value of their lives, but she had to be more careful now. In a few days the headmaster will call the cops and report Akito as a missing person, making it hard to play more games. But May wouldn't stop, not until she was dead would the games end. Chapter 3, Fallen Green Angel. Over the next year and 8 months May would become more and more popular, making headlines on the news whenever they found the victims of one of her games. Her first couple of victims were mostly drug addicts and common thugs who used their quirks to commit small crimes and bully others, but eventually she moved on to bigger targets such as Yakuza members and lesser known villains, which helped her gain even more popularity to the point where she was labeled a villainous vigilante by the police and given the name Jigsaw by the news for her trademark of cutting off pieces of flesh in the shape of jigsaw puzzle pieces. Her most recent victim, however, gained her serious attention, for it wasn't a villain but a hero. Flashback to most recent game. A man suddenly awoke from his slumber feeling nothing but pain until he realized he was laying on razor wire. He screamed as he looked around the room to see nothing but the sharp wire surrounding him and a passageway to another room also covered in wire. "Hello Mr. Burbu, or do you prefer going by your hero name, Mr. Brave?" The hero looked around to see where the voice was coming from, only to find a speaker in the corner of the room. "You are a perfectly healthy, sane, pro hero with a large fan base and a girlfriend who loves you, yet last month you ran a straight razor across your wrist. Did you cut yourself because you truly wanted to die, or did you just want some attention? Tonight, you'll show me." The irony is that if you want to die you just have to stay where you are, but if you want to live, you'll have to cut yourself again and again. Find the path through the razor wire to the door, but hurry. At 3 o'clock that door will lock and then, this room becomes your tomb. And just make sure you are not cheating. I have taken the liberty of removing all of your hair from your body so you can't use your quirk. How much blood will you shed to stay alive, Burbu, and let the game begin? As soon as the recording stopped, the hero dove right into the razor wire, crawling through it trying to get to the other rooms. The wire cut him deep with blood pouring everywhere from his body. "You sick fuck Jigsaw, when I get out of here I'll find you and murder your ass, you hear me you bastard, I'll kill you," he screamed as he went through the wire trying to ignore the pain, but that was proving to be impossible. After what seemed like an eternity in an endless hell of razors, he had finally reached the end, crawling up the stairs and through the doors right as the clock hit 3. He laid there in a pool of blood staring at the ceiling with blurry vision. He eventually tried to get up, but his legs looked like they had been through a cheese grater, so he crawled across the floor to the next door. But it suddenly opened and there Jigsaw stood in his pig mask. "Congratulations Burbu, you survived. Don't you feel grateful to be alive?" The hero tried to get up so he could strike her, but his wounds were too bad and he was bleeding heavily, causing him to pass out. May walked over and grabbed his arms, dragging him out to a dark alley where a homeless bum was sleeping. She carefully placed him next to the bum, doing her best not to wake him before running off into the darkness. Eventually the bum awoke to find the injured hero and took him to a hospital where emergency surgery had to be performed to keep him alive. End of flashback. May walked down the street happy as she could be. Not only did someone finally survive one of her games, but just this morning Mr. Brave was allowed to speak to the press about the incident, and when asked about why he was chosen to take part in the game, he told the whole truth of how he was cutting himself because of his depression from not being in the top 10 heroes despite his best efforts to become so. He even thanked her for teaching him to value everything in his life before the police and other pro-heroes cut off the press and pushed them out of the room. May wanted to jump around in excitement. The pro-hero thanked her, meaning her game worked and she had helped him become a better person or respect his life and quirk. She felt like she could do anything in the world until smack she stopped and turned around to see him, a green-haired boy with green eyes in a middle school uniform laying there with a broken arm and a broken leg, was coughing up blood and crying, "Please, coughs blood, help me." Coughs up more blood. The poor boy asked in lots of pain from his broken bones and internal injuries. May wanted to help, but the scene before her reminded her of something. Her own attempt of suicide flashed in her head. "Please, coughs blood, help me. I don't coughs, I don't want to die." She snapped out of thought by that sentence. "No." The boy was shocked by her answer and didn't understand at first, but she soon explained her reasoning as she pulled out her phone. "I could call for an ambulance to get you, but what would that do? In a few months after they let you out of the hospital you could just try to commit suicide again. If you truly mean what you say about wanting life, then you're going to get up." The boy's eyes widened at the statement. She could obviously see his broken leg and arm, so why would she ask that? He wondered. "I'll give you 1 minute before I turn around and keep walking on my way, leaving you here to die. Please, prove to me you want to live." She held out her phone to him, but he simply just laid there staring at her until the minute was up. She put her phone back into her pocket and began walking away from the injured boy, who deep down was probably much like her, sad, alone, bullied. He probably felt like he had no more will to live, and as soon as he jumped he found it, but it was too late. She then felt a muscular hand touch her shoulder. She saw that it was bloodied and bruised and belonged to the green-haired boy who had limped an entire block just to get to her. "Please, I want to live." He reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone, but he couldn't take it anymore and passed out from his injuries. She quickly checked his pulse and thankfully he was still breathing as she grabbed him by his legs and dragged him into an alleyway. She then ran to the orphanage and stole the headmaster's car. She had done that before, and drove back to the alley and put him in the back seat. This was going to be a long day for her. Chapter 4. His side of the story. Izuku Midoriya was not like other children. He is part of the 20% of the population that is born quirkless, meaning they have no special abilities or physical mutations. Because of this, Izuku was abandoned by his friends while some became his tormentors, beating him up and testing their quirks on him so they could find new ways to use their gifts. For the next 10 years of his life he would endure this treatment, but not just from his classmates. Teachers would also discriminate against him for not having a quirk, and they would just let other students bully him right in the middle of class, and he didn't even call for help when they saw other students beat him outside the school. Instead he just watched for a bit before walking away, probably to make sure they weren't gonna kill him or cripple him. Every day Izuku told himself that it was gonna get better soon, that everyone would start being nice to him again and want him to be their friend, but he knew that wasn't going to happen as long as he was quirkless in this world. You wanna be hero so bad? I got a time-saving idea for you. If you think you'll have a quirk in the next life, then go take swan dive off the roof. His former best friend said that to him right in front of everyone in class. As much as people liked making fun of Izuku, no one wanted to say that or think of him doing that to himself, but no could speak up to Bakugo, so they remained quiet. Later that day Izuku walked another route home so he wouldn't confront his former friend, but that's when he was attacked by a slime villain, but was saved by the #1 pro hero All Might, who he was crazy fan of. He then later found out, after he grabbed a hold of All Might, who tried jumping away forcing him to land, that All Might is injured and his true form looks like a scarecrow. He then asked All Might if he could become a hero despite not having a quirk. "I'm sorry, but you can't be a hero. There's just some villains you need a quirk to defeat. You should think more realistically." At that moment Izuku remembered all the horrible things he's endured throughout his life and how everyone told him to give up, and this made him realize, All Might was just like everyone else who tried to crush his dreams. "Hypocrite," he said quietly, but All Might heard him. "What do you just say?" Izuku looked deep into his hero's eyes and said it louder, "You're a hypocrite." All Might was shocked by the statement. He wanted to say something, but the boy cut him off before he could. "All my life people have been telling me I can't be hero, that I should just give up on my dreams, but I won't do that because real heroes don't give up." Through Izuku's rage All Might finally found a moment to speak. "Listen kid, I'm sorry but dash dot." He was cut off again by the green-haired boy's rage. "Shut up, I don't want to hear it." Izuku took out his All Might wallet and removed all his money and personal info. "Here, take your shit back. I don't want it. Izuku threw his wallet on the ground in front of All Might before running away, leaving the number 1 hero on the roof speechless and regretting his words. Izuku ran all the way home and locked himself in his room and stared at his All Might posters and collectibles. This sent him into a rage as he began ripping all the posters down off the walls and tearing off the All Might bedspread and pillowcases before turning his attention to his desk covered in All Might collectibles. He wanted to smash them, but then he thought about how much they're worth and decided to carefully just remove them and put them in the closet. Once all signs of All Might were removed from his room, he began working out so he could become strong. After 8 months of non-stop training and his mom worrying about him, he gave up. Despite his newfound strength and stamina, he knew deep down All Might was right and it was time to give up, and suddenly the memory of what his former friend said to him about jumping off the roof and killing himself. He decided to go through with it as he climbed to the roof of a nearby building and walked to the edge. "Goodbye, Mom, I'm so sorry." He jumped, but as soon as he did he regretted it and wished he could take it back. Smack! Izuku hit the ground, but he didn't die but instead broke an arm and a leg and was coughing up a lot of blood, and that's when he saw her, a girl with pink hair wearing a dirty tank top and jeans, looking down at him. "Please, coughs blood, help me." Coughs up more blood. He looked at her waiting for to help him, but she looked shocked, so he asked her again through his cries, "Please, coughs blood, help me. I don't coughs, I don't want to die." She simply looked at him and responded with something that surprised him, "No." She explained how he might try to kill himself again if she helped him. She explained this as she pulled out her phone and told him to get up and call for help on his own. He didn't know what to do. His arm was broken and so was his leg, so how was he gonna do that? After a minute of not moving and just staring at her, she put away her phone and just started walking away. Suddenly an urge came over the boy, and using whatever strength he could get, he picked himself up and limped over to the girl down the entire block before stopping her. He put her hand on her shoulder and she turned around to face him. He said the words, but this time without coughing up blood, "Please, I want to live." He then reached inside her pocket and pulled out her phone, but before he could call anyone he passed out from the pain. "May, did you really have to tell them that part again?" "Of course I did, but it was in your perspective and it explained your backstory." "I get it, but why didn't you let me tell this part of the story?" "Because I want to tell the story, Izuku. Also, why did you say at the beginning you alone created a worthy generation? I helped you along the way." "Izuku, you spoiled it for them. Just stop talking and let me continue the story. I love this next part." 2 days later, Izuku awoke from what felt like an eternity of sleep to find that he was not in his own bed. He tried to get up to see where he was, but he noticed that he was not alone in the bed. The pink-haired girl was laying next to him with her arms wrapped around him, hugging him tightly. He was blushing to the point you could mistake him as a tomato. His sudden movements caused May to wake up. "Oh good, you're awake. How are you feeling?" Izuku was going to answer, but then he caught a glimpse of her, of what she was wearing. She wasn't wearing any pants, instead she just had on pink panties and a tank top but no bra on, revealing the outline of one of her nipples. I am fine," he said, looking away. May crawled over him and walked to her bin of clothes and pulled out some shorts. "So, what's your name?" she asked as she put them on. "My name is Midoriya, Izuku Midoriya. What's yours and where am I?" Taking a quick peek at her, she had very nice body, but Izuku looked away before he could see her take off her top. "My name is May Hatsum and you're currently in a abandoned warehouse where I work." Izuku was confused for a minute, but then he looked around the room and saw the blueprints pinned to the walls. They were designs for devices of torture, and it didn't take long for him to figure out who she was. "You figured out who I am, haven't you?" He looked at her to see she was fully dressed, but it was still very revealing, but that wasn't important at the moment. "Yes, you're the infamous Jigsaw." She was surprised. Most people call her a killer, but he didn't. "Are you gonna put me through one of your games?" he asked as his body began shaking from fear. "No. You have already proven to me that you want life and now respect your life, so there's no need for that." Izuku stopped shaking and sighed in relief, but now he was hit with curiosity. "If I'm not going to be in a game, then why did you save me and heal my wounds?" She stared in his green eyes and smiled at him. "I want you to help me with my games." Izuku's jaw nearly hit the floor by that statement. "I see use in you, Midoriya, despite you being quirkless. You're a smart boy with the second highest grades in your class, plus you're super fit and bulging with muscle." May's mouth began to drool a little about how fit he was and remembered how it felt to touch his arms. But Izuku didn't notice this though, as he was deep in thought and somewhat mumbling. He knew he should say no, but he wanted to know more of why she wants him to help her. Why do you want me? There's got to be at least 1,000 people out there more qualified than me. No, there isn't. She responded with, you see what I see, a world full of people ungrateful of the gifts they are given and have no respect for their lives or the people around them. I want to change that, Midoriya. I want to make this world a better place for the future generations, so please accept my offer, Izuku, and work with me. Help me save lives by bringing them to the truth. Mei reached out her hand for a handshake and stared at the Izuku, waiting for an answer. Izuku thought about for a sec before realizing she was right, that everyone he knew used their quirks for pointless tasks like beat him and bully him when they could be doing something like helping people. He grabbed her hand and squeezed. I'll help you. She smiled and tackled him, but he began screaming in pain, for Mei forgot about his broken ribs. Sorry. Chapter 5. Setting up. Over the next few months, Mei helped heal Izuku, bringing him food, fresh bandages and medicine to help with the pain, while also teaching him about her games and babies that he would be helping her set up. After 3 months, Izuku could walk again, but he had a slightly noticeable limp, but it didn't really affect him at all as he began working out again despite Mei's protests trying for him to take it easy. Soon Mei was accepted into UA, leaving Izuku alone for a while, which made her felt bad, but Izuku didn't care. He had gotten over not going to UA and focused all of his time building up his strength and building the babies Mei requested for her future games she had planned for the near future, but he also made his own traps as well. In his spare time he had been working on something called the reverse bear trap, which he took a lot of pride in making since it was his first trap that wasn't just something Mei created and taught him how to make, it was his original idea. As he set up to surprise Mei with his first invention, he flipped on the TV Mei brought him so that he wouldn't get bored while resting, and turned it to the news so he could see what's going on in the world. What he saw made him drop the remote. Breaking news: UA has seemingly been attacked by unknown villains. Nobody knows how the villains got past the security as police and pro heroes try to solve that mystery. Izuku grabbed his phone and ran out of abandoned warehouse. He began texting her to see if she was okay. Izuku, I just heard what happened. Are you alright? Mei, I'm fine, but I do need to talk with you. Izuku, is it good or bad? Mei, it's fantastic. Meet me at the ice cream shop on Ruby Street, you know the one. Izuku, in case you forgot, I'm supposed to be dead. Someone could recognize me. Mei, wear a disguise. Izuku, where am I gonna get a disguise? Mei, OMG, I put some money in your wallet and hurry please, this is important. Izuku reached into his pocket and pulled out his wallet, and to his surprise was stuffed with yen. Izuku, where did you get all this? Mei, not important, just hurry up. Izuku didn't want to keep her waiting, so he quickly ran to the nearest clothing store and quickly bought what he thought would look nice. He ended up buying a pair of skinny jeans, a white shirt with the death metal band Nightmare on it, and a nice black leather jacket, and to top it all off, a hat that says Plus Ultra in all capital letters to cover up his hair, which would help prevent anyone from recognizing him. Once he had paid, he ran out of the store, but not before taking a free medical mask they had out, but not because he was worried of getting sick, but to make sure no one could recognize his face. As he walked down the crowded street, he looked at a picture of his blueprints for the reverse bear trap to make sure everything was done right. Because of this, he wasn't paying any attention to where he was going and accidentally bumped into women, making her drop all her groceries. Izuku quickly got down and started helping her pick up all the spilled fruit. As he apologized, I'm really sorry. Once he had picked everything up and put it back in the bag, he gave it back to her. Here you are. Ma dash dot. He choked on his own words as looked into his mother's eyes. They looked like they were filled with sadness and red as if she had just stopped crying. Thank you, she said with little to no emotion in her voice. And no problem, he said as he quickly continued walking down the street, thinking he got away unnoticed. Izuku, he just kept walking, hoping his mother would just go her own way. And thankfully it worked, but he was now crying a little. He quickly wiped his tears and arrived at the ice cream shop on Ruby Street. As he entered, he saw Mei waving to him from a booth in the back corner. Over here, Izuku, she said, jumping up and down in her seat. As he sat down, Mei threw a bunch of files at him containing records on everyone in Class 1A and 1B and some of the pro-hero teachers. How on earth did you get this, Mei, without getting caught? He said as he flipped through the pages of All Might's file. I made this baby that. Hey wait, have you been crying? She noticed the redness in his eyes. I ran into my mom while I was out and she almost didn't recognize me, but I quickly left before she could see it was me. Oh, I see. There was brief silence between the two, but it was suddenly broken by the waitress bringing Mei's order. Here you go. 1 mint chocolate chip milkshake and 1 strawberry milkshake. They both thanked the waitress and returned to being silent. Izuku wanted to apologize for ruining the mood, but Mei spoke first. You know you don't have to do this. This made Izuku very confused. What do you mean I don't have to do this? If you want to go home and leave this life behind, I would understand. Mei could see how badly Izuku was affected by seeing his mother, and seeing him like this made her feel bad too. I see now that when I asked you to join me you kind of had no choice since you couldn't really move. You were probably scared to say no, thinking I would dash dot. Before she could continue, Izuku grabbed her hand. Mei, you didn't force me to join you. I willingly chose this path. I knew when I agreed to this that life I would have to leave whatever life I had behind, and I accepted this, for you. Mei's face began turning red, and as soon as Izuku realized what he had said his face turned red as well. Go for it, dude. The two looked over and saw that everyone was looking at them, smiling and giving them thumbs up. Wait, it's not like that. The two of them yelled at the same time. Now Mbara said they quickly paid for the milkshakes and gathered their files before heading back to the abandoned warehouse they call home. It was an awkward walk back, but it wasn't silent as Izuku was mumbling the whole way there. Once they were back and the door was locked, they began talking again. So, Izuku. He stopped mumbling and looked at her. Why yes. He barely was able to speak, he was such a stuttering mess. I need you to study the files and find out more about all the students in class 1A and 1B. You think you can do that for? She handed him the backpack and walked back to her room. Well, actually they have been sharing a room, but Izuku remembered his trap. Wait, I want to show why you something. Before she could say anything, he grabbed her hand just like before and dragged her into the workshop part of the warehouse where they build everything, and brought her to his workbench that was covered by a white sheet. Get ready to be amazed. He pulled off the sheet, revealing his invention to her. Wow, Izuku, you made that. I did. It's called the reverse bear trap. Let me show you how it works. He pulled the pin out the back and the timer started as Mei and him backed up from the workbench. After a minute passed, the timer was up and the trap activated, violently opening and breaking while scaring the crap out of Mei. See, Mei, if someone fails to remove the trap it will rip open their jaw and pretty much explode their face, but the problem is every time it activates it breaks, and I don't know. He was suddenly tackled, hugged by Mei, who was super excited that her partner made his first baby of his own. They fell to the ground with Mei still holding onto him tight. I'm so excited you made a baby on your own. You're really smart, Izuku, and I'm glad to have you as a partner. At that moment she noticed something about the green-haired boy that she never noticed about him until now, and it wasn't his brain or cute smile, it was his muscles. She ran her hands up and down his chest and abs, feeling how well toned it was, and his arms, my god, she could touch them all day, they were so big and tough, she just loved to touch them. Mei. She didn't hear him, all she wanted was to touch him more and more. Mei. A few more minutes of touching his muscle, then she would let him up. Probably, Mei. She finally snapped out of it and realized she had basically gropped his entire upper body, causing him to turn red as a tomato. I am so sorry, Izuku, I don't know what came over me. She quickly got off of him and helped him up, but the damage was already done as he just stood there not knowing what to do or say in this situation, and to be honest neither did she, as they were both heavily red now. So yeah, I'll just leave you to work on the spying. Izuku just stood there trying to avoid eye contact with her and to hide the bulge in his pants from Mei. Oh, okay, is all he could think to say after something like that. She soon left the room, leaving him to get started on his work. He looked in the backpack filled with files from over 40 students and wondered where the hell to start. A month of awkward moments with Mei and spying on pro heroes and training later. It was done. After a month of non-stop spying, Izuku had finished his list of future targets along with a list of their quirks and reason for them being chosen. 1. Subject: Minoru Mineta. Quirk: Pop Off. Can remove sticky balls from his head and use them to attach to any surface. Reason: repeated acts of sexual harassment. 2. Subject: Mina Ashido. Quirk: Acid. Shoots acid from her palms. Reason: manipulative and cheating on her boyfriends. 3. Subject: Denki Kaminari. Quirk: electrification. He can emit electricity. Reason: manipulated into committing crimes for Ashido. 4. Subject: Eijiro Kirishima. Quirk: hardening. Hardens skin into spiky shards. Also gives strength boost. Reason: same as Kaminari. 5. Subject: Aju Itsuya. Quirk: frog. Jumps like a frog. Can extend tongue. Puke acid. Reason: allowing her parents to abuse her and her siblings. 6. Subject, Toru Hagakure quirk, invisibility, she's invisible, can't make that simpler. Reason, using her quirk to rob people blind and voyeurism. 7. Subject, Niyoto Monoma quirk, copy, can copy other quirks when come into contact with user but only for 5 minutes. Reason, unhealthy obsession with being better than class 1A8. Subject, Yui Kode quirk, size, can alter the shape of any object but not a person, must touch object to activate quirk but must close her fingers together. Reason, drug addict and distributor. 9. Subject, Okako Urarika quirk, zero gravity, similar to Kode's quirk, she touches an object or person and makes them float, and to deactivate must close her fingers together. That's also another way to activate her quirk. Reason, informant for the League of Villains, responsible for USJ Attack 10. Subject, Katsuki Bakugo quirk, explosion, he can excrete sweat similar to nitroglycerin from his palms and ignite it at will to create various explosions. Reason, bullying, segregation of others, convincing me to attempt suicide, being an absolute dick. The list was complete. Now all he had to do was show Mei and plan how were they gonna pull all this off. Chapter 6, Mineta and Monoma, you stupid purple fuck, you got me in trouble. Bakugo slammed Mineta against the alleyway wall using one hand and creating small explosions in his other. I got you in trouble? You wanted to look in the girls' locker room just as bad as me, and I'm not the one who said of a small explosion from his dick that got us caught. Mineta instantly regretted bringing that up as the hand around his throat tightened. You perfectly good waste of an abortion, how dare you say that? Just who do think you are? At that moment Mineta had two choices. He could try to apologize and talk his way out of this, or he could keep messing with Bakugo knowing it will end with him being badly beaten. Mineta chose the dumb option. At least when I come on a girl, I won't give her second-degree burns. He gave a weak smile before his face was met with an angry fist. Bakugo beat him to a bloody pulp to where he was barely conscious. You little shit, he said as he kicked him one last time in the stomach. If I see you outside of school ever again, I'll cripple you. He spat on him before walking away, leaving the purple-haired boy laying there beaten and bruised. After an hour of just laying there he finally got to his feet and walked home, but he felt something was off, as if someone had been watching him the whole walk home. As he arrived at his house he found a note taped to the door and he began to read it. Minoru, your father and I are visiting your uncle in Yokohama and won't be back for a week. There's enough food in the fridge to get you by until we return. Make sure the dishes and laundry are done before we get back and stay out of trouble. Love you and sorry we won't be able to see you live at the sports festival. Mom and Dad. Mineta sighed as he entered his house and immediately headed to the bathroom to clean the blood and dirt off of him. He turned on the shower and waited for it to reach just the right temperature before walking in, not even bothering to take off his clothes. As he sat down and began to cry, he stayed in there until he heard a noise coming from the kitchen. He quickly turned off the shower and ran to kitchen where he thought he heard the noise come from, but nothing was out of place. He even checked the living room, but everything seemed normal, so he just went to his room to dry off. As he entered his room he looked around to see if everything was okay. The walls still had posters of almost naked women and anime girls on them, and his shrines to Midnight and MT Lady were still intact, so he thought nothing was wrong and the noise he heard must have been his imagination. He quickly changed his clothes and headed back into the living room so he could watch those dirty game shows that the TV in his room had a lock on. After a few hours he decided that it was time for bed, so he turned off the TV and headed back to his room, but as he entered his room he tripped over a baseball bat. Damn it, how the hell did this get out of MT closet? He picked it up and headed to his closet, but stopped right outside the door when he noticed it was slightly open. He hesitated when he reached for the handle, but eventually he built up the courage and opened the door to find it was empty except for old clothes and some toys from when he was younger. He shrugged as he threw the bat in there and shut the door. I'm a freaking pro hero in training, I shouldn't be so scared. He turned around to see a pig-faced man staring at him. What the foo dash dot? The intruder stabbed him in the neck with a syringe before Mineta could even finish his sentence. He quickly pulled of one of his sticky balls and planned to throw it at him, but suddenly he found himself unable to move and very tired, where he eventually passed out from what was in the syringe. The man removed his mask to reveal it was Izuku. Well, that was tough. He almost caught me when I tripped over this stupid cloak. Better text Mei and see if she's done. He pulled out his phone and began to text. Izuku, did you get Monoma yet? Mei, I got him. Coming to get you now. Be there in 5, so be ready. Izuku, Okay, Izuku looked around the room admiring Mineta's collection of history books and encyclopedias on his bookshelf. Never took Mineta as a history type of guy. He grabbed a book about the Edo period and opened it to find pages of upskirt shots and close-up pictures of women's boobs, and some of them were of his classmates. Izuku quickly closed the book and put it back on the shelf before looking back at Mineta. You are a disgusting little man. Right after he said that, he got a text from Mei saying she was out front. Izuku quickly picked up the small purple pervert and carried him outside to the trunk of Mei's car and put him next to a knocked-out Monoma. He ran around to the passenger seat and looked over at Mei, who was smiling at him, wanting to know every detail of his first time. So how did your first kidnapping go? It was pretty easy, though I almost gave myself away. I think I need a shorter cloak, he said as he started taking off his costume. It's okay, the first time never goes completely right, but the more you do it the better you get at it. She started the car and began to drive, but her eyes weren't focused on the road. Instead she kept looking over at him, getting glimpses of his ABS. So what's the plan, Mei? She snapped out her trance and focused back on the road before answering. It's simple, we're gonna broadcast our game live during the sports festival tomorrow. She began smiling at the thought, and it creeped out Izuku a lot. She reminded him of those smiling hyenas from The Lion King. How the hell do you plan to do that? She handed him a bag filled with security cards and their small strange devices. Those are things I was trying to tell you about a while ago, but I never got to explain them. It's basically a cloaking device that makes you unable to be seen on video or any other recording device. She picked one up and hit the big red button. Now I'm invisible. Wow, Mei, that's amazing. You are a genius, Izuku said, making her blush a little. She was used to getting compliments like that, but for some reason whenever Izuku said something like that it made her feel all fuzzy inside. Thank you, Izuku. Anyways, I'm gonna explain now how we're gonna do this, so listen up. He quickly looked in the glove compartment and pulled out a piece of paper and a pen. I'm ready, Mei. The day of the sports festival, Mei woke up to the smell of freshly cooked French toast, which could only mean one thing. Izuku was making breakfast. She skipped getting on some clothes and went straight to the kitchen area, where he saw Izuku washing the dishes. Hurry up and eat. You don't want tea to be late for your big day, he said as he turned around to see her only wearing one of his large white t-shirts and her pink panties, causing him to turn red as a tomato. From the sight of her, Mei, why are you naked? He turned his face so he wouldn't be caught staring. I'm not naked, plus this isn't the first time you've seen me like this, so why are you so nervous? He tried to respond, but he was such a awkward wreck that he couldn't produce a sentence. Oh God, looks like I broke you. She grabbed his hand and walked him over to the kitchen table, making him sit next to her. She began to cut the French toast into little bite-sized pieces before stabbing one of the pieces and raising it to his mouth. Open. Izuku did what she said, opening his mouth and letting Mei feed him. She then handed him the fork. Your turn. Izuku didn't complain as he stabbed a piece and put it up to Mei's mouth so she could put it in her mouth. You make the best French toast in the world, Izuku. Thank you. She took the fork back and began eating, but she suddenly saw the time on her watch. Oh God, I got to get dressed. She quickly got up and ran back to her room, leaving Izuku at the table looking at the half-eaten breakfast. Once she was dressed, she ran to the front door of the warehouse, where she was met up with a flustered Izuku. Well, I'm off. Wish me luck. Wait. She stopped and looked at him, noticing how embarrassed he still was. I have something to give you for good luck, but first you need to close your eyes. She didn't know why she had to close her eyes, but she did what he asked. Once her eyes were closed, he wrapped his arms around her, giving her a deep hug before kissing her on the cheek and whispering in her ear, good luck out there. She opened her eyes as soon as Izuku let go of her. They were both blushing and smiling. Thank you for that, Izuku, she said before running off to school. Once she was out of sight, Izuku grabbed his jacket and went to location for the game to finish some final touches. Later at the sports stadium, Mei had done incredible in the sports festival. In the opening obstacle race to the stadium, Mei got 15th place, surprising many in attendance. Next round was the human cavalry battle, where she teamed with the winner of the obstacle race, Shoto Todoroki, Tinya Itza, and Momo Yayorozo to get first place and earn a spot in the final round, which was a single elimination tournament. Sadly, in Mei's first match against Tinya Itza, she was dropped out of the ring, but it wasn't a complete loss. She had tricked him into advertising her babies for her, making her and her inventions known to the world. As she headed back to the locker room, she pulled out a screwdriver and began to fix one of her babies, not looking where she was going and eventually running into a tall man. Oh, I'm so Sorry I wasn't dash dot. She froze when she saw that the man was the number 2 pro hero Endeavor. Out of my way kid, I'm very busy. He continued on his way, not even offering to help her up. She quickly got her up and picked up her baby. One day, when I'm ready, you will be tested, she said quietly. After washing up she returned to watch the rest of the matches with her class, who congratulated her on making it this far in the festival. She watched every match carefully but was more focused on the ones with people she and Izuku targeted for future games. Eventually the tournament came to a close and the winner of the sports festival was Katsuki Bakugo, the bully who told Izuku to kill himself, and this made her angry to know someone like that is trying to say he is gonna be a hero. Let's hear it for our winner Katsuki Bakugo. The stadium cheered for their champion, but it seemed Bakugo was unhappy with his victory, but that all disappeared when the big screen went to static, grabbing everyone's attention. What the hell is going on? Chapter 7, We Are Live. In the TV production trailer, what the hell is going on, guys? The head of the TV production crew was angry out of his freaking mind because a lot of people at home and in the crowd could not see what was going on and he knew he would be blamed. I don't know, boss. We were having a clear feed, then all of a sudden we lose everything in a flash. It doesn't make any sense. I don't care if it makes sense, just fix it, god damn it. At that moment the signal came back, but it wasn't on the tournament winner. Instead they saw a room separated by metal bars. On one side they saw a boy standing by himself and on the other a boy strapped to a chair with what seems to be a long pole shoved into his mouth. What the fuck is going on? Back in the stadium, hey, that's Minoma and Mineta on the screen. The students of Class 1A and 1B noticed their classmates were not present at the festival today, but they just assumed they caught some type of sickness, but in Mineta's case they thought he just chickened out. Hello, can anyone hear me? Hello, what the fuck is going on? Minoma said, waving and looking straight at the camera. Suddenly a voice spoke to him, blaring through the speakers of the stadium. Hello Minoma, I wanna play game. Over the past few months you have become a shell of your former self, consumed with hatred for Class 1A, feeling that they do not deserve the attention that they are undeserving of, calling themselves the best. On the other side of the bars is Minoru Mineta from that class. He is a sexual predator who has assaulted many women and has even been arrested on several occasions for these crimes, but these crimes were never taken to court due to his father's political power. The device he's attached to will shove that pole that is currently in his mouth down his throat and eventually ripping through his stomach. The only way to prevent this is to give a sacrifice of your flesh. Using the knives given to you, put 8 pounds worth of your flesh on the scale located in the corner of the room before 5 minutes is up. So what will you choose? Will you put aside your hatred for him and put your life at risk, or will you let the timer run out? The choice is yours. The clock started and Minoma looked over at Mineta, who couldn't talk because of the pole in his mouth, but he could still look at him out of the corner of his eye. Minoma could see the tears in his eyes, and despite the fact he did hate Class 1A, he never wanted this ever to happen to any of them. He walked over to the table with knives and grabbed one before putting his arm down onto the table. He gave one last look at Mineta, who was trying to wiggle out of his chair, but it was no use. You know Mineta, I don't like you, in fact I do hate you, but I'm not gonna watch you die, Minoma said before taking a deep breath. He began cutting into his arm, screaming in pain as he cut deeper and deeper. Once he felt it was cut deep enough, he began to make another cut on his arm and then another until he made a shape of square on his flesh. He then gathered his strength and quickly ripped off the patch of flesh, almost making him pass out from the pain, but he was strong and managed to crawl over and put the flesh on the scale. 0.95 IBS is how much it weighed. Well, it's a start. He looked over at clock to see how much time he had left, and it was not good. The clock was down to 1:12 left. Oh fuck. He got up to his feet and ran back over to the table of knives and grabbed a new knife. He began cutting another square on his arm, but when he saw that he was now down to 53 seconds left on the clock, he realized he had to do something drastic if he was gonna save Mineta's life. He then saw the meat cleaver at the end of the table and a painful thought came to his mind. He grabbed the cleaver and began whacking at his arm, screaming in more pain than before. After what felt like forever of chopping at his arm, Minoma finally managed to cut it off, but he was bleeding profusely now from his wound. He looked at the timer and it only had 15 seconds left on it, making Mineta start to freak out as he tries to twist and turn his way out. Minoma was tired from blood loss, but he was determined to save Mineta's life even if it kills him. With 5 seconds left on the clock, he ran over to the scale and put in his arm in before collapsing. Monoma smiled as he looked up at the scale and saw that the weight on the scale was over 8 IBS, meaning he had won the game and saved Mineta from a horrible painful death. He looked over to see that the device had extracted the pole from his mouth and the shackles unlatched, freeing the boy. Doors suddenly opened on each side of the room, allowing them to leave, which Mineta took the first chance to do, running out of the room, not even checking on Monoma before leaving. Monoma tried to get up, but he was too weak from blood loss, and as he laid there in a pool of his own blood, he began to take fast, heavy breaths. Soon his breath slowed down and eventually he stopped. Suddenly the feed went static and returned to normal, with the cameras focusing on Bakugo, who had a look of horror on his face, and so did everyone else. Some had gotten up and left at the sight of the boy cutting off his flesh, and others couldn't hold down their lunch and ended up throwing up. Everyone please remain calm and exit in an orderly fashion please. As for the students, please return to the buses. Aizawa didn't know what to do other than try to empty the stadium and get everyone out of here. Soon the stadium emptied out and the students returned to school, where they were told that they would have the rest of the week off to relax and they would be sent home as of right now. Mei was happy because more days off meant even more time to set up games with Izuku, and go shopping with Izuku, and go out to dinner with Izuku, and go to the movies with Izuku, and make babies with Izuku, and she wasn't talking about her inventions. What have you done to me, Izuku? Who's Izuku? Mei snapped out of her trance and looked at her classmate Jack, who was from America and occasionally talked to her, unlike most of her other classmates who were kind of scared of her. So who is he? Is he your boyfriend? The question made Mei turn red. It's none of your business, she said before leaving Jack all alone. He pulled out his phone when she was out of sight and began to text everyone in the class chat room, which Mei wasn't in because she didn't really hang out with any of them outside of school. Back at Mei's and Izuku's warehouse, our top story tonight: after the finals of what was a fantastic sports festival turned into a live horror show, as it would appear that the Jigsaw Killer somehow managed to hack into the festival feed. He then showed everyone a live presentation of his game featuring 2 UA students. One managed to survive, but the other student died of blood loss. However, the live video did bring up some questionable things about UA. It was originally believed that those with criminal records could not enroll in the school, but however the student that survived the game apparently had a mass criminal record, sexual assaults on women. UA officials has denied knowing anything about the student's past crimes and say they unsure on how the boy got into the school in the first place. Izuku turned off the TV and smiled. The game went completely as planned and 2 names were off the list, but now he had to go make Mei a special dinner for doing so well in the festival. He went to the kitchen area and began preparing decorative kamabakos, which were her favorite. After an hour of messing around in the kitchen, Izuku was done, and now all he had to do was wait for her to get back. After 2 hours Mei finally got back, but she seemed nervous about something. Mei, is something wrong? She looked at him with a small blush on her face, but she kept a serious expression the whole time. We need to talk. Chapter 8, Love and Pain. Mei, you're not going to tell them our first time together? What? They're the ones who asked us for the story and I don't want to leave anything out. You already skipped several months in the story already and several other people you tortured before you met me. So, oh, what's the point of arguing with you? Just go ahead and tell them if you want. Listen, I'm sorry for getting you upset, honey. How about after this I'll make it up to you by doing that thing you like so much tonight? Alright, tell them, but before you do I want a little something now. Izuku kisses Mei and squeezes her ass. Save that for later, love. Now on with the rest of the story. Mei and Izuku were both on the couch looking very flustered at one another. So Mei, what is it that you wanted to talk about? Did I do something wrong today? Of course not, she said, nearly jumping on him but quickly calming herself down. You did everything I asked perfectly. I couldn't have done it better myself. Izuku let out a sigh of relief, but then he figured out what Mei wanted to talk about. The kiss on the cheek he gave from this morning. Izuku, you're a great guy, you're sweet and kind, and you always know what to do when I'm feeling down to make me happy again. You also have very big muscles and I like that very much. Izuku was blushing so hard that it looked like he was about pass out. What I'm trying to say is that I like dash. Damn it, why is this so difficult to say? It was so easy to say in my head. Izuku put both of his hands on her shoulders and looked deep into Mei's eyes. Mei, I am your partner and you can tell me anything you'd like, so don't be afraid to say anything to me. He then gave her a hug which made her feel hot inside. Izuku. He separated from her so he could look at her directly. Yes, Mei. She took a deep breath before answering. I love you. Before Izuku could react to what she just said, Mei pressed her lips against his. The kiss wasn't bad, but she could tell this was his first time kissing an actually girl that wasn't his mom. After a few seconds they separated, both red as strawberries. I've been waiting to do that all day. She expected him to be all shocked and mumbling out of his mind, but instead he was smiling at her. I love you too, Mei. She was overjoyed to hear that as they kissed again, but this time there was little more aggression. After a few minutes of making out they broke apart to catch their breath. Izuku then began kissing her neck, leaving little marks. He quickly unbuttoned her school uniform to reveal her blue bra. He didn't waste any time trying to get the bra off, but he was having a lot of trouble. Come on, why is this so difficult? Izuku kept trying as Mei began to laugh, making Izuku feel like he ruined the moment. It's okay, let me help you. With one try she unhooked her bra, revealing her huge breasts to him. He began to squeeze and suck on her tits, causing her to let out small moans. Izuku, don't stop, don't ever stop. And with that he stopped and got up from the couch. What the hell, I told you not to stop. She was about to yell at him some more until he took off his shirt, showing off his godlike body to her. I'm really sorry for stopping, but I felt it was unfair that you were shirtless and I wasn't. She began to feel his well-toned abs from top to bottom, and then moved on to his thick biceps, but his muscles weren't the only thing on her mind. She kissed him as she reached into his shorts, pulling out his cock and began to pump it until it was fully erect. Wow, Izuku, your cock is huge. In truth, she already knew he was hung from when she had to take off his clothes to perform surgery on him after his failed attempt at suicide, but he didn't need to know that. She took off her skirt and her matching blue panties so that she was completely naked in front of him. May I, you sure you want to do this? She gave him a peck on the lips before answering, yes, I want this, with you. She pushed him onto the couch and crawled on top of him, positioning herself so that his member was right at her entrance. She then slowly pushed herself down onto him until it was all the way in, and then began moving her hips up and down while Izuku kissed her neck and chest. May, you're so tight. He suddenly began thrusting into her, squeezing her ass tightly as he did. Izuku, I'm about to come. Me too. Their motions became faster and more intense as they both approached each other's climaxes. Mei came first, her juices trickling down his cock as she nearly passed out from the pleasure. Izuku came too, letting his cum flood her womb. She got off of him slowly before just completely falling off the couch. Oh my god, Mei, are you okay? She raised her hand up and gave him a thumbs up. I'm fine, that was just a lot. Izuku slowly rolled off the couch and fell next to Mei and wrapped his arms around her, kissing her cheek. We should take a shower. He tried to get up, but Mei dragged him back down. Can't we just lay her a while? He wanted to say no, but she gave him that cute of hers and he couldn't resist. Okay, but only for a little bit. The next day, Izuku woke up on the floor with a blanket over him and a note on his chest that he started to read. Morning, Izuku, I had a wonderful time with you yesterday. It was absolutely perfect in every way. I locked myself in my workshop for a bit to work on a project for school, so you won't see me for a while, but there is some things I need you to do for me. 1. Put Tora through a game. I believe in you and that you can do this on your own. 2. In a few days when I go back to UA, I need you to go to Hoso City and pick up a special order for me from a man named Kai Chisaki. He's a powerful Yakuza and may betray you, but I have planned for this just in case. Over on the couch I've laid out a series of weapons designed to take them out if you need to. Once you're done in Hoso, come back immediately to the warehouse where I will have a surprise ready for you. Love, Mei. Izuku got up and looked at all the weapons that she had laid out for him. Each one came with a note explaining what they were. The first were a set of hidden blades that he could hide under his jacket sleeves. When and did Mei make these? He asked himself as he picked up a homemade cattle prod, but was more surprised at the guns she had out. There was 2 ISA submachine guns and a Remington Model 887 shotgun with a note that explained that the shotgun shells are special explosive rounds that she has been working on. After looking at all the weapons, he went to his workbench and began scribbling down ideas for Tora's trap. It took a lot of thinking, but after hours of writing and designing he finally had a game that was perfect for the invisible girl. He took his notebook and got dressed really fast before heading out to buy stuff necessary for the game to work. 2 days later, Tora, please take out the trash before going to bed. Yes, Mom. Tora walked into the kitchen and grabbed the trash out of the bin. She walked out of the house and threw the trash bag on the curb and walked back, but she stopped when she heard a rustle in the bushes. She slowly walked towards the sound, preparing to strike in case it was villain. Once she was in front of the bushes, she quickly jumped into them to find nothing, just dirt and Leaves. Huh, must have been the wind or something. Toru turned around to find a pig-faced man standing behind her. He quickly tackled her and tried to cover her mouth while injecting her with drugs that would put her to sleep, but this was difficult since she was invisible and Izuku didn't know exactly where her mouth is. After a minute the drug finally kicked in and she passed out. And good night. Izuku picked her up and carried her over to his van and put her in the back and quickly drove off to the low-quality motel where he had set up the game. Thank God she's out for a while, this place is far away. Note to self, place game closer to where you kidnap the person. He said as he turned on the radio. Well, hello to all you late night listeners, this is President Mike and you're listening to Hero Talk. Today's guest is the #1 pro hero himself, All Might. Welcome to the show. Thanks for inviting me, it's a pleasure to be on the show. Izuku reached over and turned off the radio. I'm not listening to that piece of shit. After a half an hour Izuku arrived at the motel. It was run down to the point where some of the doors didn't even lock and most of the windows were boarded up. Someone really needs to fix up this town, there's like 100 abandoned buildings. Before getting out of the car he pulled out May's camouflage device and turned it on, making him invisible to video cameras. He walked around to the back of the van and picked up the invisible girl, carrying her over his shoulders. He walked to the room at the end of the building and opened it. The room was filthy, but it didn't matter to him as he placed Toru in a chair and shackled her in. Alright, time to put the finishing touches. He went to the van and grabbed 3 big sacks from out of the back. When got back he was greeted by an awake Toru who was trying to escape from her restraints. Let me go. Hello, can anyone help me? He's gonna kill me. Izuku was glad he didn't take off the mask as he put the sacks down and got another syringe. Looks like I need to start using some stronger stuff. Oh well, time to send you back to Dreamland. He slowly approached her with the syringe and injected the needle in her shoulder. Why are you doing this? She asked, barely able to stay awake. Izuku got close to the girl's face and gave her a simply answer in a quiet tone. Because you must pay for your sins, only then can you walk the path of a hero. He then backed away and watched as she fell asleep and continued on finishing the trap. Chapter 9. The Fangirl. Many hours later the drug in Toru's system wore off again and she had awoken to find herself still stuck in the chair. She looked down on the floor to see that it was covered in glass, nails, and small Lego pieces. Someone please help me. She yelled, but no one could hear her cries. The TV suddenly turned on, playing static until it cleared and weird-looking puppet was staring at her with its black and red eyes. Hello Toru, I wanna play game. Some people may call you a pro hero in training, but I call you a thief. You use your quirk to pickpocket unsuspecting victims, rob from stores just for a cheap thrill, and spy on others for your sexual pleasure. These acts are none of which a future hero should represent. For this game you will experience what it feels to be your victims, as they cannot see you but you can see them. There is a bomb that is invisible to you because it is disguised as something in the room and will go off in 1 hour. You must find out what the bomb is and defuse it before time runs out. If you try to leave the room before defusing the bomb, then it will explode automatically. Good luck. Oh wait, there's one more thing, watch your step. The TV went back to static before showing a countdown timer. The restraints keeping her in the chair unlocked and she was free to look around at her own free will, but she took another look at the assortment of sharp objects on the floor. Can anybody hear me? Please help me. She yelled, hoping to get someone's attention, but no results came of it. She sat in the chair and began to cry with small tears running down her cheeks. I'm sorry I did those things. Please, I don't want to play. I'll stop, just please let me go. She just sat there and cried, hoping this would all end, pleading for her life. Minutes passed and she finally gathered the courage to try to search the room and walk on the sharp mess of items. She knew it would hurt, so with one quick movement she stepped in the mess but immediately jumped back into the chair. Damn it, damn it, damn it, she said as she pulled a Lego piece out of her foot. She then tried again. This time not going as fast. Crunch. She took her first step and managed to keep her foot down. Oh god, it hurts. She took a step, now having both feet in the sharp mess. She slowly took steps towards the TV stand and began investigating it to see if the bomb was there, but she couldn't tell if it was. She then headed to some drawers on the other side of the room but tripped, falling face first into the mess. She screamed as she slowly got to her knees, removing glass bits from her face. As she played her game, Izuku watched through a small peephole he drilled in so that he could see the game's progress and to make sure everything went according to plan. Well, it's been 20 minutes. Might as well put Act 2 of this trap into action. He pulled out a phone he had bought just for the game and sent out a message. All at once everyone in Class 1A got the message, but some ignored it while the others actually hit it. The first thing they saw when hitting play was a creepy puppet. Hello Class 1A, it's nice to see you all again after Mineta's and Monoma's game. You're probably wondering why you received this video, and the answer is a simple. The video cut to Toru, who was sitting in the chair crying. Your friend Toru is stuck in a room with a bomb she does not know the location of and will go off in 35 minutes. I will give you a hint to where the bomb is in the form of a riddle. You answer me, although I never ask you questions. What am I? Now that you know the hint, you have an option to either tell her the riddle or solve it yourself before telling her. The choice is yours. The video stopped and the students were shocked to see what had happened to their friend. In the Class 1A group chat, Itza, everyone, there's an emergency. Todoroki, we know we got the same message as Yutsu. Where do you think she is? Zero, couldn't tell. Shoji, don't recognize the place, but we got a little time to figure that out. Ajiro, we have to help Hertsu. We will. But all we got is a dumb riddle. Momo, anyone good at riddles? Zero, no. Bakugo, what the hell is going on? Okako, sorry, terrible at riddles. Itza, maybe Toru knows the answer. Jiro, that's a bad idea. Ajiro, why? Todoroki, isn't it weird that he gave us the option of telling her? Jiro, exactly, it must be a trick. Bakugo, what a dumb riddle. Ajiro, but what if it's not a trick? Zero, I'm with Ajiro, we gotta do something unless one of us can figure it out. Momo, God, this guy is a monster. Bakugo, what has she done to deserve this? Okako, who cares, we must save Hertsu, we'll find out after we save her. I'm contacting the police right now. Ajiro, she only has a half hour left, I'm calling her right now. Shoji, no, we should solve the riddle first. Ajiro didn't care as he left the group chat and began to type in her number. Bakugo, god damn it, monkey boy never listens. Okako, like you're any better. Bakugo, fuck you. Jiro, now isn't the time for this. Todoroki, I solved the riddle, someone stop Ajiro now. Momo, why? Todoroki, the answer is a cell phone. Itza, what? Todoroki, her cell phone is the bomb. It was too late to warn him as he made the call to Toru. She had been so distracted from the game that she forgot all about her phone in her pocket until it went off. What? The killer forgot to take my phone? I'm saved, she said as she pulled it out and swipped right. The phone exploded in her hands, sending shrapnel into her face and blowing off her fingers to both hands. She fell to floor convulsing and bleeding out of the cuts that went deep into her neck. After a minute she stopped moving, and a pool of blood surrounded her corpse. Izuku sighed as he went over to the room. I told you anything in this room could be a bomb, that included your phone. He talked to her dead corpse as if it could learn from its mistake. He pulled out a knife and cut a piece of Toru's flesh in the shape of a jigsaw piece before leaving the motel room, heading back to the warehouse to start packing for the trip to Hosoe. As he drove off he couldn't help but feel something was off, like he wasn't alone. Hello. Izuku swerved off the road, hitting trash cans before making a complete stop. Wow, where did you learn to drive? Izuku looked over his shoulder to see a girl in a school uniform with sharp fangs smiling at him. Let me just say, I am a huge fan of your work. Izuku was mentally screaming. Not only had someone figured out he's a jigsaw killer, but that someone was in the van with him. A fan. Not just a fan, I'm your biggest fan, she said with a smile that never seemed to go away. She crawled into the passenger seat holding his pig mask and reverse bear trap in hand, playing with it. What's this thing do? He watched as she toyed around with his creation, trying to find out how it works. What do you want? He asked, slowly reaching for a knife he kept on him at all times. What I want? Oh, I know what I want. Izuku finally grabbed the knife, but before he could pull it out he was met with a blade against his throat. I want to spend time with one of my idols. Now let go of that knife and start driving to where your hideout is. Izuku did what she asked and got back on the road. So who are you exactly? Tha fangirl blushed at the question and went berserk on him. Oh me god, me jigsaw went stoke know my name, oh my god. She eventually calmed herself down after a few more minutes of rambling to him like he was like some type of YouTube celeb. My name is Himiko Toga, what your name? Izuku, now that we know each other, can you please take your knife away now? She laughed and took the knife away from his throat. Okay Izuku, do you mind if you answer a few questions for me, kind of like an interview? He knew if he said no she would probably cut him or just threaten him with the knife again. Sure, not like I have a choice. But what he didn't know was that Toga had started recording the conversation. Okay Jigsaw, tell me about Your games. What about them? Why do you put them on is what I mean. It's simple really, I want people to appreciate their gifts. Too many people in this world take their gifts for granted or use their powers to commit petty crimes and then call themselves heroes or good members of society. That disgusts me. Toga squealed from excitement. That was so riveting. Okay, tell more about you like. What made you start the games? No one just wakes up and decides to start torturing people to teach them moral lessons. Izuku didn't know what to do. He thought that she probably had no clue about Mei and only thought he was the only Jigsaw. He decided to keep Mei out of it for as long as he could, but for now he would tell her his story. When I was little, the doctor told me I was quirkless. Toga's smile disappeared and was replaced by a look of sorrow. I'm so sorry. It's not your fault I was born like this. Anyways, I was bullied for most of my life to the point where my best friend abandoned me and told me to kill myself and pray I get a quirk in the next life. He looked at her and he could tell she was horrified from the look on her face. At that moment I actually thought about it, but I talked myself out of it. On my home I was attacked by a villain and I was saved by All Might, but dash dot. You met All Might. Her sudden screaming caused Izuku to swerve off the road and crash into street lamp. Once he was sure he was okay, he checked on Toga, who knocked out and bleeding from the head. He sighed as he got out of the van and dragged Toga with him. Should have buckled up, he said as he laid her on the sidewalk and hopped back into the van. He knew he probably should have killed her while she was out, but he couldn't go through with it just right with, plus why would a fan screw him over? He started up the car and drove off, leaving her there. She'll be fine, probably. Toga woke up a few minutes alone on the sidewalk wondering happened. Fuck my head, god damn it, it hurts fuck. She suddenly remembered her phone and quickly checked to see if it was still there. Yes, I got it. I got the interview with Jigsaw and he knows who I am. Oh my god, I can't believe it. She calmed herself down and started editing. I can't wait to show everyone on the site these videos. Chapter 10, Jigsaw Rules. Izuku was tired. For starters, he had been working on a game for the past 2 days with little rest, making sure it would be up to Mei's liking. He had to kidnap a girl who was completely invisible and make sure she followed the game's rules, and finally a fangirl broke into his van, saw his face, learned his name and made him crash the van, twice. He walked into the warehouse, barely awake and stumbling over everything. I'm back, he said as he walked up the stairs to his room. He pulled out his phone and began texting Mei as he flopped onto the bed. Izuku, Mei, the game is complete. Tora failed, dead tired. I love you and I wish you could take a break and come out and spend some time with me. I miss you a lot. Izuku put down his phone and closed his eyes. There was no use in waiting for Mei to respond because he thought she was too busy to respond and wouldn't see the text until tomorrow morning. He laid there trying for what felt like an hour to sleep, but his whole body hurt. I should probably have Mei check me out to make sure nothing's broken. He shut his eyes again in hopes that he could finally get some much-needed sleep and forget about the today. As soon as he felt like he was finally there, he heard the door to his room open, footsteps getting closer. He felt his mattress shifting before feeling the warmth of Mei's arms hugging him. I missed you too. She kissed him on the cheek and tightened the hug. Izuku smiled as he finally fell asleep next to the person he loved most. The next morning, Izuku awoke from his nap to find he was alone in bed and the whole warehouse smelled like smoke. He slowly crawled out of bed and walked to the door of his room before asking, "Hey Mei, you alright?" There was brief silence before he got an answer. Yeah, something didn't go as planned is all that happened. He let out a small laugh as he walked down the steps to the kitchen. Okay, just checking. He walked into the kitchen and grabbed the frosted flakes off the counter and the milk from the fridge before mixing it into a bowl. He began eating the cereal as he walked into the living room and took a seat in front of the TV, switching it over to the news to see if anyone has found what's left of Tora's game. The Jigsaw Killer has striked again, taking the life of yet another UA student. He smirked as he took a bite of his breakfast. However, thanks to an anonymous source, for the first time ever we have footage of the game and how it was set up. Izuku choked and spilled the cereal all over the floor. He watched himself set up the game on a poorly recorded video, clearly recorded on someone's phone. He was freaking out, wondering how the hell this even happened, and then it hit him. The fangirl, she recorded me. He was freaking out, pacing back and forth until, sadly, at one point in the video the Jigsaw Killer took off his mask. However, the video had been edited, making the killer unrecognizable. Izuku sighed in relief. Oh, thank God. He turned off the TV and cleaned up his mess. Once that was done he had to think of a plan. Okay, everything is cool, just got make sure May never finds out about this. I'll just make up a story. Yeah, that's what I'll do. I'll say I swerved off the road to avoid hitting a dog and I crashed. As for the video, well, May is too busy to go online or watch TV, so I don't think that is a problem. Izuku smiled nervously at the thought about his plan being success. You know that is a good plan. Izuku froze. With all his strength and against his better judgment, he slowly looked over his shoulder and there she was. The only problem with it is that you said it out loud before making sure you were alone first. May slowly walked towards him and gave him a hug, surprising him. You're not mad at me, May? He asked, but May just smiled. Yes and no. Yes, I'm mad you wrecked the van and planned to lie about it, and no, I'm not mad at the video, but you do need to explain yourself. Izuku did what she asked and began from the beginning. He mentioned everything from the design of the game, the puppet he made which creeped her out, the kidnapping, the actual game, and finally the fangirl toga. So there you have it, May, the whole truth. May quickly pulled out her phone and showed Izuku a website named Jigsaw Rules. May, what is this? He scrolled down to see images of past victims and traps, but some of them were not theirs, they were other people's designs. A few months after I started my work, this website appeared with people obsessed with my games. Some would make offerings to me like I was some type of god in hope I would punish the ones they hate most. Others made their traps inspired by my work in hopes one day they could find out I used their trap. She took back her phone and put her hands on his shoulders. Enough of that though, it's time for your punishment. He closed his eyes expecting something gross or painful, but to his surprise he felt her soft lips on his cheek. I want you to take me out on a date. He opened his eyes to see May smiling at him. Okay, that's you. May pressed her finger against his lips and shushed him. Before you get excited, we're doing everything I want to do and you're not gonna complain. If you do, you will get punished later, understand? He shook his head. Yes, good, now go take a shower and get dressed, we leave in an hour, love you. She left the room, leaving Izuku dumbstruck and little turned on. Okay, was all he managed to say before going back upstairs to get ready for their date. Later in the city. Alright May, where to first? May grabbed his hand and dragged him into a nearby hardware store. First I need some new tools and you're gonna carry them all using your big muscles. She had a plan for him to suffer in silence. She started buying all the tools she needed to fix the van before buying some tools she needed for school. By the time she was done, Izuku was carrying several heavy bags. You doing good, Izuku? She said with an evil smile. Fine, where to next? He said with a fake smile. Next is food, but first put all the bags in the car. Izuku wanted to cry because they parked 3 blocks over. After a horrible walk to and back from the car, he met back up with May and they went to her favorite ice cream place, the one where they discussed the files a few chapters back. You really like this place? Yep. She replied with excitement as they took a seat in a booth. Welcome back, May, would you like the usual? The waitress kindly asked. Yes, 2 of them please. The waitress smiled and went to the kitchen. A few minutes later she returned with their orders and May immediately started scarfing it down as Izuku watched in horror. You must have been really hungry. She stopped and gasped for air. Yeah, I haven't really eaten anything for 2 days. She went back to eating while Izuku thought of a plan. He took and ate his cherry and used his tongue to tie the stem into a knot. Wow, how did you do that? She asked as she quickly tried it herself, but with poor results. I can't do it, show me how you did it. Phase 1 of his plan was complete. Phase 2 was a go. Okay, first close your eyes. She did what said and closed her quirky eyes. Good, next step is to lean forward towards me and open your mouth. As soon as she did, he kissed her and the two started making out, helping May's tongue. After a minute Izuku pulled away and smiled. There, you did it. May was red as the cherry stem in her mouth. She took out the stem and grabbed Izuku's wrist and dragged him into the bathroom. May, no. Aw, come on. No, you're not telling them about the time in the bathroom. But you let me tell them about our first time. That was special, this was just filthy bathroom sex. Fine, I'll skip that part, thank you. After 20 minutes the couple walked out of the bathroom. May was happy as can be while Izuku was red to the point where it looked like he was about to melt right there. I can't believe we just did that. He managed to say as they paid for the ice cream and walked back to the car. May latched onto his arm and rested her head on his shoulder. I'm so tired, Izuku, that took a lot out of me, so could you carry me? Mei was suddenly swept off her feet and in Izuku's big muscular arms carrying her bridal style. Anything for you, he said, giving her a kiss. I love that part, Izuku. Me too, Mei, but this next part I want to tell. Izuku begins rubbing his scar that runs across his entire cheek starting at the corner of his lip. I understand, Izuku, I understand.